Nigerians join their counterparts across the world to mark May Day 2024. Information Minister tasked legislators on quality legislation.
One of the cardinal objectives that this ministry is focusing on now is the restoration of trust between those who are elected and Nigerians who have elected them.
Plus, update from State Houses of Assembly. Good evening and happy Workers' Day. I am NTA Ojonugba with the news. We begin with a goodwill message from President Bola Tinubu, who heartily congratulates Nigerian workers on the auspicious occasion of Workers' Day, held annually to celebrate the lifeblood of our country. The President salutes Nigerian workers for their fidelity to the peace and progress and development of the nation, evident in their tireless efforts and patriotic zeal to keep the national engine running. In a statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Chief Ajuri Ngelali, President Tinubu celebrates Nigerian workers across all spheres, from the clerical officer who ensures the proper documentation and distribution of correspondence, the security officer who remains ever dutiful through all seasons, the teacher who secures the future of our nation by impacting knowledge to the next generation, the doctor who works relentlessly to save precious lives, and to all Nigerian workers who keep the candle aflame. The President affirms that his administration remains committed to improving the welfare of all workers, noting the various relief programs, including the wage award and the imminent minimum wage review. President Tinubu strongly believes that the custodians of the nation's machinery deserve a fair wage and enhanced welfare, and that a laborer is deserving of not just any reward, but fair and commensurate wages. The President assures Nigerian workers of his dedication to not only improving their welfare, but also enhancing their working conditions and providing the necessary tools for them to succeed. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, has assured Nigerian workers that the National Assembly and the executive arm of government would work collaboratively to give them a living wage and better working conditions. He gave the assurance in a statement congratulating the workers as they commemorate the 2024 May Day. Akpabio, in a statement, extolled the sterling qualities that stood out the Nigerian worker, who he said is noted for patriotism, hard work, resilience, and dedication to duty. On this year's theme for Workers' Day, ensuring safety and health at work in a changing climate, Akpabio promised that the National Assembly, under his leadership, was more than committed to ensuring the best working conditions for the Nigerian workers. He assured that no Nigerian worker will again be allowed to work under inhuman conditions, as everything will be done to give workers the best. Similarly, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, commends Nigerian workers for the immense contributions to the growth and development of the country. Speaker Abbas, in his message commemorating this year's Workers' Day, described labor as a critical stakeholder in nation building, while charging workers with patriotism and dedication to their fatherland. The Speaker assured them of better welfare under the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Still on Workers' Day celebration, Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, says the nation's parliament is committed to legislative actions geared towards protection of workers' rights, better welfare for their labor, and a safer and healthier workplace. Saluting millions of Nigerian workers on the occasion of the 2024 International Workers' Day, the Deputy Speaker urges them to keep hope alive, assuring that governments at all levels are working together towards making life better for them. Kalu states that this year's Workers' Day theme, ensuring safety and health at work in a changing climate, resonates with the agenda of 10th House of Representatives towards addressing climate change, related issues, and ensuring a safer, healthier working conditions. Earlier, I had an interview with the National Assembly correspondent and labor correspondent, Ignatius Nkwo. Take a listen. Our guest is NTA's National Assembly and labor correspondent. He has been covering the National Assembly for the past 9 years, a master's degree holder in legislative studies. Ignatius, welcome to the news.
Thank you for inviting me.
Today is Workers' Day. Incidentally, you are NTA's National Assembly and labor correspondent. How will you describe the role of the National Assembly in improving the welfare of Nigerian workers?
Well, the National Assembly, as we all know, is the house of the Nigerian people. And that is basically the essence of having the legislature to represent all strata of the citizens. Well, from 1999 to date, it's been clear that the National Assembly has exhibited a huge desire to improve the lots of Nigerian workers. Well, you know that their duties as lawmakers basically is to provide law, to oversight policies of the executive, and then to make sure that their constituents who elected them, have the benefits of democratic governance. And then the Nigerian workers basically have really benefited from the law-making process of the National Assembly. In fact, from 1999, there are quite a number of laws that today we will say that has improved the welfare of Nigerian workers. And some of these include, you will remember that it was the National Assembly that passed the bill on the physically challenged persons in Nigeria. And that bill primarily is to make sure they provide a level playing ground and conducive environment for all workers, whether you are physically challenged or you're not physically challenged. And then that bill provided, made it a standard, compulsory, that every working environment must provide access routes to the physically challenged. And I tell you, that bill today is one of the icebreakers of the Nigerian nation, because now you see that the physically challenged workers, if you go to the Secretariat and some other places where you have high-rise buildings, you find out that they now have access, route on how to access their offices and environment. And then that as well also provided punishment for discrimination against the physically challenged persons in terms of employment. So you find out that it's a very big legislation that you can nod your head today and say, yes, the National Assembly has provided for the physically challenged workers. Now, well, we have the National Health Insurance Scheme, which is today the National Health Insurance Authority. Now, that bill was also basically to make sure that workers, as soon as they are working, we as human beings, is that time when we have health issues. Now, that bill was basically to make sure there are provisions for taking good care of workers, their health. So, that bill, like I did say earlier, is also targeted at Nigerian workers. Well, in as much as now it's been expanded to include even individual persons who are not working for government, but basically is for the working population. So you find that these are legislations that are very, very critical to the welfare of Nigerian workers. Now we have the Social Work Bill. That bill as well, that bill was passed in 2022 by the 9th National Assembly. They were so concerned in making sure that social work in the country has been documented, becomes part of our statute books, and make sure that it becomes a national policy, that it should be recognized as such. And you remember then, quite a number of civil society organizations, both local and international, all were complimenting the then president for assenting to that bill. Now, we also know that this bill, PENCOM, the PENCOM and PITAD, these are bills, these are twin bills, legislations that was primarily to enhance the welfare of Nigerian workers who have retired. Because it's very important that in as much as you are working, it's very important to also have at the back of your mind that one day you will retire. And so if we don't have legislation that will take care of these retired populations, then it's a very big problem. There won't be motivation for those who are working, because they will feel at the end of the day, they would have wasted all their years. But then the PENCOM, the pension law, is one that has given big motivation to Nigerian workers as well. Now, we also find out that most times there are what we call casualization in Nigerian workplace. The National Assembly in various times have tried to, address it. Because most times you find out that, for instance, in banks, you see somebody work as a casual for more than 10, 15 years, and the person is still working as casual. The National Assembly has moved some motions quite a number of times, though there are some bills, but I think that bill at the moment is yet to be assented to, that try to stop casualization in workplaces. So these are if you go to developed countries, these are areas that the National Assembly lawmakers have tried to intervene to ensure that there are human beings in employer-employee relationships. So there are quite a number of legislations, which some of them we might not even remember at the moment, that the National Assembly have tried to put in place to ensure that Nigerian workers, they have decent working environments.
The major part of workers' welfare is in salaries and wages, as they expect increased wages. Now tell us the process of minimum wage increments. Are there exemptions under the Act? Okay,
well, your first question is the process of minimum wage increment. Now, we talk of minimum wage, we're talking of the least, the amount of money that an employer should pay the least staff or the least worker under his employment. Now, in the Nigerian case, we have a process, and that process starts with the executive and passes through the legislature and gets back to the executive. Now, there are processes for doing this. Now, if a nation decides, like in the case of Nigeria, as a case study, Nigeria decided they want to review its national minimum wage. Now the president, because the national minimum wage law is in the exclusive list. And when we talk of exclusive list, these are the lists where only the National Assembly, the federal government will legislate on. Now the national minimum wage is on the exclusive list. Now the president will now have to establish a committee that will now go and sit down and take a look at the necessity of reviewing the national minimum wage, like we have today, the tripartite committee on national minimum wage. Now that committee will have its time and then go through the processes, go through the previous bills, go through the working conditions, go through the laws guiding workplaces and work environment in Nigeria, and then they will come up with their resolutions and then make recommendations to the president. Now, when they make this recommendation, they will hand it over to the president and commander-in-chief, who will now take a look at it, and then go for consultation as well and advice. And that is where you see the National Council of States. He will take that report to the National Council of States. They will sit together. Now, don't forget the National Council of State is an advisory body that advises the executive. Now, where you have the governors, you have Senate President, Speaker, House of Representatives, you have the former Chief Judge of the Federation and some other, and former presidents. Now they will sit together and table the report of the committee, and they will discuss it. Now that is where they will finalize. If, for instance, the committee has recommended that let's make the minimum wage 20,000 as a peg. Now the committee will sit, the council will sit and say, yes, okay, let's agree on this. Or if they want to increase it, they will increase it. If they want to reduce it, they will reduce it. Now, when that is done, the Council of State, National Council of State, will now approve the reports, which means they've approved what the committee has recommended, and the president takes it back and then transmits it to the National Assembly for for legal backing. Now, when this comes to the National Assembly in the form of a letter, where the president will say he is transmitting, it's now a bill. It's now an executive bill. Every national minimum wage comes as an executive bill. Now, when it gets to the National Assembly, to the both chambers of the National Assembly, the Senate President and the Speaker will read on the floor that there's a letter from Mr. President now requesting that the national minimum wage of the Federation be reviewed. Now they will table it. When they read it, now each chambers might decide to refer that bill to the Committee on Labor, or they will decide to establish an ad hoc committee that will handle that bill. Now, because it's a bill, and that very first day that they read it on the floor as the letter from Mr. President, it has been read for the first time, which means it has passed first reading. It's a bill. Now, the committee, the ad hoc committee, for instance, or the Committee on Labor, will now go and sit down and take a look at what Mr. President has submitted, just like you do for budgets. Now, if Mr. President has submitted that we are going to make the minimum wage 20,000 naira for the least worker, the committee will sit down and deliberate. They are the people who are very closer to the people. They will take a look at the situation of the country, and they will decide and say, well, Mr. President has made this 20,000 naira, but from our own wisdom, 20,000 naira is too small. or 20,000 naira is too much. So we have to. So the National Assembly has the right to increase it or reduce it, just like it does to budget. Now, when the committee finishes its work, they will bring back the reports to the chamber, now in the Senate or House of Representatives, now in the Committee of the Whole. They will read the report of the committee, and the Senate President and the Speaker, sitting as chair, they will deliberate on the recommendations. If they are comfortable with what the President sent as 20,000 naira, they will pass it. They will adopt it. And then when they adopt it, they will pass it for third reading. House of Rep will pass for third reading. Senate will pass for third reading. Then they will harmonize it. Now, when that is being done, they will now bring a clean copy. Clean copy now means that during the process of consideration and everything, there are some amendments, some things that they amended, and they also, so all those things will be corrected, and then make sure that there's no mistake on the bill, because it's a law. Now, they will now make a clean copy and send it back to Mr. President. So when Mr. President gets it, that's the last stage for minimum wage review. The Mr. President will have to append his signature. Once he has signed his signature, the new minimum wage has taken place. From the very first day, he appends his signature. So that is the process of amending national minimum wage in Nigeria.
Okay, so are there exceptions under the Act?
Yes, like I said, it's a law. There are derivatives, and there are drawbacks. And because there are human beings who are going to, implement these laws, there are certain areas that employees should not go, and there are certain areas that employees should not go. Now, it's not the national minimum wage is not a blanket cover. In as much as once the National Assembly has approved the national minimum wage, both states, state government and the federal government, all workers under it, they must obey the national minimum wage. But states can decide to pay higher, but they will not pay lower. If the National Assembly has approved 30,000 naira, for instance, states must not go lower, but they can pay 100,000. That is the law. Now, the exception is that this minimum wage is not applicable to casual workers. It's not applicable to people who work based on commission. It's not applicable to an employer whose workforce is not up to 25 workers. Once you have an office, an organization, and your workers, they are 10, 15, 16, 17, 20, it's not applicable to you. You pay your workers what you want to pay them. But once, whether you're an individual, you're a group, corporate entity, once your workers are more than 25, you must pay them that national minimum wage. So, like I did say, the exception there is that it doesn't include casual workers. It doesn't include people who are paid based on commission. It doesn't include people, a workplace where they have less than 25 workers. And then there are some organizations, like, for instance, those who work in ship, those who work in the rig. Now, some of these works, some of them, they are paid per hour. So it doesn't cover them. So these are some of the exceptions in the national minimum wage.
Thank you, Ignatius, for coming on the news.
Thank you for having me.
Still on May Day Goodwill Messages, the Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, NILS, Professor Abubakar Suleiman, joins leaders across the country in celebrating the hard work and dedication of Nigerian workers in all sectors of the occasion, on the occasion of the Workers' Day 2024. In a statement released by his media team, Professor Suleiman emphasized the importance of acknowledging the resilience and sacrifices of the workforce, which serves as the foundation of the nation's progress. He reaffirmed NIL's dedication to advancing policies and legislation that support fair labor practices, protect workers' rights, and facilitate job creation and career development. The Director General called on labor unions and organizations to address the challenges faced by the workforce collaboratively. These efforts, he says, should aim to build a more inclusive, equitable, and prosperous Nigeria where contributions of every worker are valued and recognized. Now we take a short break.
Are you looking for a short channel to make your business, goods and services go viral? Look no further, as NTA Parliament is your short channel. Take advantage of our wider reach and advertise your products and services on NTA Parliament DSTV channel 370, GoTV channel 126, StarTimes channel 306, and Free TV channel 706. For more inquiries, contact the Marketing Department, NTA Parliament, NTA Headquarters Area 11 Garki Abuja, or call these numbers 080-383-40464 or 080-770-78055. NTA Parliament, strengthening Nigeria's democracy.
You are watching NTA Parliament News. You can follow the broadcast and other programs on the platforms on your screen. The 10th National Assembly has pledged commitment through purposeful legislation to facilitate collaboration with the Ministry of Information and National Orientation in its renewed vigor towards national rebirth. This was when members of the House of Representatives Committee on Information visited the ministry's headquarters at Radio House, Abuja. Salihu Gwanara reports.
But I have taken this cry to Mr. President, and he has assured that it can never be like this again.
It is the first oversight duty by members of the committee to the ministry under the watch of Mohammed Idris since August 2023. Members scrutinized the ministry's 2023 and 2024 budget documents and took a unanimous decision to support the Ministry of Information and National Orientation with a supplementary budget for an upward review of the ministry's recurrent and capital expenditure in view of its objective of national reorientation.
One of the cardinal objectives that this ministry is focusing on now is the restoration of trust between those who are elected and Nigerians who have elected them. And that can only be achieved when Nigerians are being told what they think and in their judgment is honest, it is accountable, it is transparent, and something that they can fact check. In the new Ministry of Information and National Orientation, every information that we are provided to Nigerians are facts-based.
We still discuss with the Honorable Speaker to see how they can help this ministry, at least to get something on the supplementary budget that is coming very soon. And 2025 budget too, we will ensure that something better is coming to this ministry.
Members assured more support to the efficient and professional information management style of the minister, Mohammed Idris, and hope that it will be sustained to facilitate the positive turnaround for the good of the nation. In Abuja, Saliu Gwanara, NTA News.
The House of Representatives is taking the campaign against drug abuse and other social vices to the grassroots for it to be reduced to the barest minimum, if not totally eradicated. As part of the strategy, the House Committee on Women Affairs has organized a two-day national conference on women's sensitization for North Central in Minna, Niger State. Mohammed Rabiu Ali reports.
The two-day conference is designed to expose targeted audience on the menace of child trafficking, substance abuse, and other forms of violence against children and women with a view to addressing them. Papers presented dwelt on creating awareness on the importance of implementing existing laws and resolutions for effective service delivery.
Issue of drug and substance abuse in Nigeria is mainly a man thing, but gradually the women folk has now found a place in the issue of substance abuse.
You have stakeholders and community leaders. You must build their capacity for them to understand what trafficking is.
Others corroborated with speakers narrating their ordeals for greater monitoring in their respective states.
I'm speaking shamelessly from the perspective of someone who had abused drugs before but was not a drug addict. And it was because of a failed marriage, a lot of women here, some of them, their marriages are not working, some are in failed marriages, and they get into drugs.
It's a known fact that men send the women to do a lot of these wrong things. And if we can have the men get to understand that whatever happens to A will surely turn around to happen to B, it will go a long way in helping the men also join in sensitizing the women and the girls.
The sensitization continues in other geopolitical zones to cover the entire nation. From Mina, Muhammad Rabiu Ali, NTA News.
An executive bill seeking an amendment of the bill regulating religious activities in Bauchi State has passed through second reading on the floor of the Bauchi State House of Assembly. If amended, the bill is expected to, among other things, ensure that all religious preachings are in conformity with the discipline of the Holy Scriptures. Abdullahi Aminu reports.
It is an executive communication seeking for the amendment of the bill guiding the religious preaching of 1987. It is with a view to ensuring control in all the preaching activities across the Bauchi State.
The enact a law for the establishment of the Bauchi State Religious Preaching Control Law and other related matters to undergo second reading and so on.
Give any advice to the committee or during the third reading, we deal with the very serious celebration.
Also, at the proceedings of the House was a request for a review of the establishment law of Bauchi Oil and Gas Academy, Al-Galeri, to provide courses on instruction, research, and training in oil and gas technology. The House has received 4 executive bills after its resumption from the recess, which included that for the tenure extension of the 20 caretaker chairmen to 6 months, as their tenure will lapse at the end of this April 2024. In Bauchi, Abdullahi Aminu, NTA News.
This is where we draw the curtain on this newscast for today. You can follow the platforms on the screen for this broadcast and other programs. On behalf of the production crew, I am Ene Ojonuba. Have a good evening.